The Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, Pica, was set up in March 2016 by President Buhari to strengthen control over government finances through a continuous internal audit process across all ministries, departments and agencies, particularly in respect to payroll. 5 years after its establishment, has Pica delivered on its mandate? Stay tuned as we examine the Pica scorecard. This is Break It Down. Hello and welcome to Break It Down, where we make matters of policies, societal issues, governance and development easily understood by all. Today we're looking at the Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, Pica, how effective 5 years after. And my guest is Ario Dari Atoye. He is the Executive Director, Adopt a Goal Initiative. You're welcome to Break It Down.
Well, thank you for having me. Longest time.
Yeah, it's been a very long time.
Yeah,
well, it's nice to reconnecting.
Thank you very
Abuja
much.
is a very busy place for people like you. So let's look at this topic for today. Is on Pica, is on accountability and transparency. For the purposes of breaking it down on this show for our viewers to really understand what we're talking about, what exactly is accountability and transparency in government?
Well, I think these two keywords are self-explanatory. The only thing is just that when it is situated within the context of government, it has to do with probably layman understanding what we call Naira and Kobo, and not just that, the policies of governments, actions, decisions, statements and all of that. Generally, the total well-being of government. And transparency and accountability most times are associated with spendings. Is the government accountable? Is government transparent? But it goes beyond that. It also it entails everything that is done in government. For instance, is a human right, which is an area where we do focus likely sometimes. It's in the process of auditing, process of financing, process of administering government. So in day-to-day activities of government, the functions of government, you want to see transparency. So in a nutshell, transparency here is the ability of the people to see clearly how the government is being administered, and in a way that they are also allowed to send in feedback, because transparency is not one way. The government must be able to, administer functions, talk to the people, and also get feedback from the people. And accountability on the other side, the government must be able to show that indeed the responsibility that they've been given, and they perform it optimally.
So where we have a government that is not transparent nor accountable, who holds them to account?
Yeah, let me say that it's the people. Who hold the government to account? Of course, the people. And sometimes, maybe not directly, because by the time it becomes so direct, it means that you are itching towards a revolution of sort, a sort of anarchy uproar. So most times there are non-governmental organizations, civil society groups, pressure groups, labor union, market union, all the social groups, social movement in a country or in an environment or in a society are usually the ones who are responsible, to keep track of government's activities. And they have also developed the capacity mechanism for assessing government. So over time, they are able to, sieve through government's objectives, intent, policies, able to dissect them, digest them, and able to take government to task. So these are groups that are, they act on behalf of the people to scrutinize government and to ask questions. So when government is not performing, you hear from them. But thank God these days for social media. So that's another platform that's giving the every Nigerian, everybody, the common man, the opportunity of putting government to tax to ask questions. So, but largely, the civil society like ours are involved asking questions, writing to government, asking, you've done this, you've not done that. This is your budgetary spendings. These are what you have not done and all of that. Or there is corruption taking place in this sector. What have you done about it and all of that? So taking government to task.
Let's look at the whistleblower policy now, where it concerns Pica, where it concerns this government to start with. When they came with this, they blazed in, so to say, on the wings of anti-corruption. We all believe that it was going to be like a piece of cake for this government because that was their sing-song. And then there was the whistleblower policy that came after that, 5 years on now. But the enthusiasm that it came with, the excitement that it came with seems to have really gone down. It has lulled or almost even non-existent. Why do you think this is the case?
There is something we are going to regret in history. And that is what the BUHARI administration, people assume he has brought into governance. The ability to be able to address corruption, the ability to be able to ensure transparency, to be able to get public officials to shape. But some months into the administration of General Muhammadu Buhari, we lost that glorious opportunity. You will readily recall that 2 months, 3 months, 6 months into the Buhari's administration, public servants were literally complying. Literally everywhere there was finesse, people were doing their jobs and all of that. But when the boys of the regime were in a hurry to make money, the fast fingers, and were struggling for opportunities, struggling for the perks in government, of course, they started losing it. And people now saw, that it was possible to continue with business as usual. And when you talk about whistleblowing, which is one policy touted by this administration as a turning point for them to be able to address the issue of corruption, and which will have been a very good milestone. I can tell you that the momentum died with the day it started unhurting some of the persons in government. So when the tail started wagging the dog, then they started having a rethink that, look, there's a policy, it's a double-edged sword, which means that it can go either way. So for some of them, they thought it was going to be a policy just to reveal the things done by the previous administration, but no, that is not how whistleblowing works. A whistleblower can decide to whistle based on what is going on in an MDA over time. They thought that it was going to be about hidden corruption, hidden funds, because that's one thing again that we also have to look at when we are putting in place policies. Sometimes people do things, with a set mindset, with a set target. This whistleblowing policy is one of them. The thinking was that there are money hidden somewhere in Sockaway, in homes, in banks, that people are going to come out through because of the opportunity of the whistleblowing policy, to make revelations. But beyond that, they achieved, some aspect of this. But by the time it started to reveal, the activities of some persons in government, they started looking away from this policy. Until today, this policy is dying in a gradual death. They no longer see it as a policy that should help to strengthen the anti-corruption crusade of this government. So it's not been a good one for us as a nation, simply because it was a glorious opportunity to make a lot of things unravel and to be able to protect, our Commonwealth. But what measures do you think the government can take now? What's your advice? As it is, you see, in a situation where people use government to peddle influence, and when most of the people who are in government or the appointees of government are there to to make money for themselves, and there is nothing bad in making money if you're going to do it the proper way, based on your own emolument, allowances, and all of that. But the moment it is based on, trying to steal from the system, it becomes terribly bad. So we still have some of those ravenous elements within the government. It's going to be difficult for this government to evolve, to do internal cleansing and make whistle blowing policy to work. The only thing we can do is through the National Assembly. The National Assembly, some of the boys, some of the men in the National Assembly are also looking for how to make money, conniving with the MDAs, their leadership, and all of that. So it's not a good one for us as a nation.
Let's take a break now. We'll be back. We're still talking presidential initiative on Continuous Audit, Pica. How effective 5 years after. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
Trending and current issues.
The COVID-19 vaccine is a blessing from my own point of view.
NGOs have a role to play.
Government policies.
Would you agree that the government is proactive enough? I think they are.
What is your opinion?
We need to do more.
The training of women
Goes beyond
rhetorics of government and concrete action.
NGO welfare programs that directly affect the average Nigerian home and the common man in the language that is easily understood by all.
It doesn't matter that the legislative arm and the executive arm should be at loggerhead to show that there's checks and balances.
Where is the checks and balances they ask?
Every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. on this station.
Yeah, you're still on Break It Down, and I'm still with Ariyodari Atoye. And we're still discussing Pica, which is Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, was set up by President Muhammadu Buhari, about some years ago, 5 years ago, to checkmate corruption by public servants. So far, how would you score Pica?
Well, Pica is a lot of things in one. It's a presidential initiative, like you said, on continuous audit. And so far, it has not been good. For instance, the whistle blowing that we talked about is one of the initiatives under Pica. Pica is an umbrella body to be able to house all the government initiatives like the IPPIS, which is a monitoring system for payment of salaries, and other auditing mechanisms that are been put in place by government. They are all largely technology driven. And I think the budget office has also tried to put in place some templates, to be able to follow through how government spendings are done. Former EFCC chairman, Muribadu, said something very fundamental, and that's one area where I think I applauded him. He said money is the easiest thing to follow, especially when it comes to the accounting system. So what we are saying here is not the problem of the system, it's the problem of the people who are managing the process and the system. So those who are managing have not done enough. And if you want to understudy the success of Pica or otherwise, then you have to look at the report from the Auditor General, where a lot of MDAs have defaulted. They don't make remittances, they don't do the necessary things that they sign on to do, and denying government of this transparency and accountability. And these are deliberately done. You see, when the reporting system, is being violated and MDAs are acting in breach of government instruments, for assessing and for monitoring, it means that it's deliberate. The moment you breach, the instrument of monitoring, it's an opportunity, to be less accountable or not to be accountable to government. So they are doing all of this. So when you look at every year, the Auditor General report every year, you will understand that Pica may be able to have picked some things. But again, what about implementation? Because what the Auditor General is also doing is also within the realm of Pica. But what about a follow-up? So Pica itself is not an end. It's a means to it. If you are able, for instance, when this government came on board, just like they celebrated the success story of whistle blowing too early, they also did the same thing with the IPPIs. The IPPIs was not even, it's not even an initiative of the BUHARI administration, was an initiative of the Jonathan administration, and it has helped to unearth ghost workers and all of that. But you see, there's something funny. Every year, you hear about ghost workers at the federal level in some state, but there is something that is unique to both. We have not seen anybody prosecuted for putting those names there. Those names didn't originate themselves. People imputed these names and all of that. So everything that is being done to undermine the system, public accountability, everything done by human beings. But these people are not investigated and they are not dealt with. And what we have now seen is, so we can't celebrate Pica if Pica has picked and has been able to identify, audit those, the government accounts and have found some persons wanting, and there is no consequence. Is
it that they are not working, or that possibly they are, but unlike the EFCC and the ICPC, they are not shouting, they are not going to the public, they are not going to the press?
Yeah, well, one thing they've said sometimes that they are a bit conservative. That's the initiative. And you see, one thing again, you don't need such an initiative really as, as another body. It should just be an idea under the Ministry of Finance. I know it's under the Ministry of Finance, but it should just be a policy under the Auditor General's office. Setting up a separate initiative wasn't really necessary. It's just bureaucracy and this part of the problem we're talking about. But now that it's in existence, we will be expecting that we should get value for money, but that's not the case here. I saw in one of the reports, I think last year, that the Pica, the head was honored, or is the agency that was honored, giving award for some of the things they've done. That's Nigeria for you. And
if they can take awards, why can they not be friendly with the media?
So they took awards, and I saw that, and I said, look, you guys haven't achieved much. And for instance, in their reports, they talked about the money they've been able to save from IPPI. IPPI I think is integrated personnel payroll information system, and what they've been able to save and all of that. But the funny thing here is, you always claim to have saved billions, hundreds of billions, but we do not see the effect of this money. You can't just come and ban a figure. And when media, especially someone like you, by the time you ask them to present the records in details, facts, they start shying away from it.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, this so-called conservative nature of theirs from running away from the media, how is it hurting the process, the initiative? Because we have tried to reach them. Break It Down has tried to reach Pica for almost 2 months.
If Pica is not ready to break it down, if Pica is not ready to be transparent.
They actually gave us an appointment. Right at the gates, they cancelled their appointment after 2 months.
Yeah, if Pica is not ready to break it down, if Pica is not ready to be transparent, if Pica is not ready to be accountable, then there's a problem. I think they need to look inward, because they should be available to make certain things, available to Nigerians. For instance, Break It Down is one of the prominent programs that Nigerians love to watch, and people get to Break It Down. A lot of Nigerians get access to information, and probably that's an opportunity for them to be able to also talk to a critical segment of the country, what they are doing as an organization or as an agency, whatever initiative, structure that has been created out of it. And I think it was a lost opportunity. The only thing I would say is probably maybe Break It Down should not relent. Maybe it should come again by way of Freedom of Information Act if you've not already done that, and ask Pica to make certain things available to you. So I want to urge Break It Down, to dare to be different, persist, because what you're doing is to bring accountability to governance, bring transparency to what government is doing, and expose some of these things to the people. And government should be happy Because you see, governments, the people in government today will be out tomorrow, and they themselves will be asking questions. So it's an opportunity that I think Pica should take, and they should probably listen to Nigeria. And I want to have my voice to that of Break It Down to tell Pica to make information available to Nigerians. Nigerians want to ask questions and they want to know what they are doing. If you can collect an award, you should be able to be accountable.
So now, would you say Pica has ceded its role to civil society organizations? Because that's what it's looking like now.
Yes, as long as they are not doing what they've been policy empowered to do, because Pica is a product of the policy of the Buhari administration, and if they've not done the needful, and we've had some civil society organization, for instance, like SERAP, like our own CDNDC, like Adopt a Go and all of that, calling on government to act responsibly, and several other organizations doing all of this, taking government to tax. It means that you see that you're responsible, because ordinarily, Pica was created to be an oversight on government agencies, ministries, departments, and agencies, to be able to ensure that some of those policies that have been put in place by the government are well implemented. And people do not compromise these policies, like the whistleblowing, like IPPIS, like the auditing system, risk management system, financial management system. And thank God for the age of technology. And some of these programs are being automated for government to be able to monitor what all these MDAs are doing. So ordinarily, Pica should be able to follow through. And Pica must also, at all time, probably be working. And that's one area where you see that there are vacuums and lacuna. So Pica ought to be working with EFCC, working with ICPC and all of that, whistleblowing initiative and all of that, and doing, trying to bring, accountability and transparency to government.
Let's quickly look at reward for the whistleblower. Is Pica managing that? Did they even manage that well in the first place when we had the whistleblowers?
You see, instead of even collecting an award, we should be hearing Pica honoring some Nigerians, who have helped to unravel or unearth corrupt practices in government. That should be, the thinking of Pica. But what do we have? I don't think they're managing that, because the whistleblowing, when they saw that's a potent instrument, mechanism for hurting corrupt practices, and because the people that have been appointed, the people of the government, are culpable, then they decide to snuff life out of the whistleblowing policy. And Pica is not helping to oxygenate the whistleblowing policy, and not also protecting the whistleblower. So it has become business, as usual. And we are the receiving end of it as a nation, because let me tell you something, there are hundreds of billions of naira every year going through our budgetary system, and are ending up in government officials' pocket, private pocket, and all of that. There is no accountability in our system, and that is why we are wasting a lot of money, and we need to do more. I hope that one day we'll be lucky to have leaders who will be so patriotic and committed to make all of these instruments work. We have enough instruments to turn around this country in 3-5 years if we make them to work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now I hope Pica will come on this show, because they really have to speak for themselves.
Pica should come on. Yes.
Thank you very much for being on the show. Thanks for watching. We'll be back same time next week. This is Break It Down.